Hour two of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse Stiers is with me as well. Jesse, it's the 6 o'clock hour, and that means, are you ready for rapid fire?
Yes, we got all kinds of topics today.
We do have all kinds of topics today. Let's get to some of them as we get this thing going. So, fill in the blank. It's blank that Marcus Freeman's name has already come up this week in connection with Florida's vacancy after they fired Billy Napier over the weekend.
To me, it's just nonsense. Everyone acts like, and I was actually watching this clip on Twitter over the break from the Dan Le Batard show saying that Notre Dame is, a stepping stone program. And I don't understand where that mentality is coming from, because Marcus Freeman proved that he has all of the resources to win a national championship at Notre Dame. He went to a national championship last year. And so I don't know what Florida has to offer that Notre Dame doesn't. And I still think, Marcus Freeman's whole mantra is choose hard, right? And I think that he enjoys that at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame can offer more to the style of recruit that he is interested in. Someone who's going to choose hard, someone who's going to choose the academic rigor, the athletic rigor, and then also the faith behind what it means to come to Notre Dame. So I think Marcus Freeman has nestled in to the perfect spot for him. And he said it before, he doesn't want to make the same mistake twice. I think he regrets not coming to Notre Dame the first time. And now he has steered the ship in the right.
Like when he was being recruited?
Okay. Yes. And I truly believe that. So it's just nonsense. And I think everyone just thinks because Florida's in the SEC that they got more money and they can recruit at a higher level. Notre Dame has top recruiting classes every year. Again, what do these programs offer that Notre Dame doesn't?
Yeah, the Le Batard stuff, and I saw part of a clip of them talking about it. You have to, for one, take what Dan Le Batard says about Notre Dame with a grain of salt. He is an outspoken University of Miami alum, so there is that. And like he is from there. It is ingrained in him, that natural, Notre Dame hatred because of Miami, like he is in the 30 for 30. I believe he is in the 30 for 30, at least a couple cuts, about Catholics versus convicts and the whole thing. So again, grain of salt there. I mean, if you want to go back to Howard Schnellenberger and the fact that he left Miami and, went to Louisville and everything else, if you want to talk about stepping stones, and Brian Kelly probably left Notre Dame with the impression that it is a stepping stone, even though he spent 12 years here before moving on to LSU. Kelly packed his bags and took all his excuses with him about why, you couldn't take the next step at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly had taken Notre Dame as far as Brian Kelly could, and he felt like there was a ceiling there that could not be surpassed. All it took Marcus Freeman was 3 years to show that the only ceiling was self-imposed by Brian Kelly, and Freeman broke through that glass ceiling and took Notre Dame to another level, winning back-to-back playoff games, beating top 10 teams 3 weeks in a row. He won more games against top 10 teams in 3 weeks than Brian Kelly could in 12 years at Notre Dame. But, like the Florida thing itself, you're right. Like down there's the natural bias that they think that they're naturally, like they're superior in what they have to offer and weather and everything else compared to a place like Notre Dame. Because one report said, that Freeman was Florida's top choice. He turned him down right away. And now Lane Kiffin is at the top of the list. Kiffin is a guy who's been connected with it, since even before the opening became official. I don't think that these things are clickbait, though. I do think that Marcus Freeman is the natural choice
for sure
for places like Penn State in Florida. Because look, it took him 3 years to get Notre Dame to a national championship game. Again, doing what Kelly couldn't do in 12 years, competing with and beating other, teams, upper echelon teams. It's the same thing James Franklin couldn't do at Penn State, like Brian Kelly. He beat the teams he was supposed to beat, but he couldn't beat Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon when those teams were elite. Couldn't beat Notre Dame last year either. Billy Napier got a lot of talent to Florida, but his teams were chaotic and unorganized. And Marcus Freeman has transformed Notre Dame's roster. He's young, he's energetic, he gets along with people who matter, i.e. boosters and that kind of things. He checks all the boxes. So he's always going to be in demand. And all these places with resources who think that they should be at the top of the heap and who think that they have more to offer than Notre Dame, they're going to say, why can't we get Marcus Freeman? Well, if you're Marcus Freeman, would you rather be at Notre Dame where you've shown you can do it, or go to a place like Florida, who's now gone through 7 head coaches
Got to restart
in 15 years post Urban Meyer? It's like, on average, you last a little bit more than 2 years at Florida. Why would Marcus Freeman want to get into that? They also had 2 coaches between Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Florida has cycled through a lot of coaches who have shown, that it takes a lot more than just being in Florida to get it done. I mean, Jim McElwain was the SEC Coach of the Year in 2015. He was fired 2 years later. So, again, I don't think it's clickbait that these programs like this would be interested in Marcus Freeman, but I also just don't see Marcus Freeman packing up and leaving to go to one of them, because he's got a good thing going here at Notre Dame. He's shown that he can do it here at Notre Dame.
As a head coach, your number one mission or goal is to win a national championship. Would he be closer to winning a national championship with where he's at right now at Notre Dame, or going to Florida and starting at ground zero again, and maybe getting paid a little bit more, and maybe, having a little bit more resources in recruiting? Like, is that really worth it to start all over again in the SEC when you have a very good situation at Notre Dame and a path to the college football?
Especially when you don't know what the roster situation is going to be. And that's the same. Anytime these jobs come open, regardless of where they are now, there's no guarantee the roster is going to stay intact because of the transfer portal. They could, like, what you think you have right now is going to look completely different in 3 months when you actually get there and take over these jobs. Yeah, John says the weather is warmer. Yeah. Which is why Florida and Florida State and Miami should all be more consistent than what they've been. But college football looks a lot different now than it looked 15 or 20 years ago, when all those teams were still at or near the top. I mean, Georgia was not a national championship contender before Kirby Smart showed up. Clemson hadn't won national championships and been a contender before Dabo Swinney showed up. Like, those are 2 programs right there that have kind of, help push those 3 Florida schools down. Like, they are in a recruiting hotbed, but they obviously haven't capitalized because they've had more misses than hits since they had some Hall of Fame type coaches who left several years ago. It's about more than just being in those hotbed areas. It's still about finding the right guy as the head coach. So Freeman was on Bussin' with the Boys podcast this week with Taylor Luan and Will Compton. They asked him how he handles it with his team when his name does come up for these different job openings.
Probably, as I look at it this year compared to last year, maybe the impulsive thing would be to say, "Oh no, I'm not interested. I got a great job." And yeah, is that the case? Yes, but when I do hear a little bit of the noise, and I try to control the things I hear, but your people know how to text you or say certain things. It's a reminder of the gratitude that I have to have for the position this program's in, for the position I have. Like, that's what I reflect on, is that, man, first of all, your name wouldn't be mentioned if your program wasn't doing really good things. And the reason why we're doing really good things is because everybody in the program, right? It's not one person, right? I always tell our guys, like, outside of this building, they're always going to point the finger at one person when you have success and one person when you have failure. And it's usually the head coach or the quarterbacks, right? And so I know the reality is it takes us all. It takes every person in this program to have success. And so when you have that mentality, you understand, like, there's a gratitude to the program that I'm involved in and I'm a part of, but also the opportunity I have to be the head coach here, right? And in this position that I hold. And so that's every time I hear something like that, I just remind myself of the gratitude that I have to be in this position for sure.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. What did you think of the response, Jess?
I love that response, and I honestly think when you boil it down at the end of the day, that response is a nutshell of who Marcus Freeman is and why this program has been so successful post Brian Kelly. Because when things are going good, Marcus Freeman doesn't raise his hand and say, "Yep, that's all because of me." And when things are going bad, he doesn't point out and say, "Yep, that's because of everyone else." He understands that when things are going good, it's a collective effort. It's your coordinators, it's your players, it's your strength staff, it's your tutors for the football players. You know what I mean? Like, it's everyone coming together, and that's the core difference. I hate that we have to come back to this, but that's the core difference between him and Brian Kelly. In that situation, Brian Kelly would raise his hand and say, "Yep, it's all because of me.
Yep.
Look at everything I've done." But as soon as something goes bad, he's not the guy to raise his hand and say, "Oh, that's all because of me. That's because of everyone else." And Marcus Freeman, as soon as everything is going well, he'll be the first one to say, "Well, it's because of this guy and that guy and this and that." But when things go bad, he's the first one to say, "Well, I need to be better. We as a coaching staff need to be better." And again, it's just the gratitude he has for the position that he is fortunate to hold right now in this moment in his life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He knows what it took for him to get there, and he knows what it took to succeed. And he also obviously worked under Brian Kelly for a year. But it's like things are going bad, obviously, at LSU right now, and we're hearing former players and rumblings from current players of like culture and all those different things. You don't hear about that here at Notre Dame, like under Marcus Freeman. It is just completely different. And again, he knows, and he said this all along, that when you're succeeding, there's going to be interest. There's going to be interest in you. Like, your name is going to pop up for these different openings. He acknowledges that it's going to happen. And I think we've already seen, kind of his just the way he's addressed that. When you hear that response right there, I think that's got to give you comfort, and you've got to feel pretty good about the fact you feel really good about, one, the fact that you've got the right guy, but two, the way I don't think you've got to be concerned about Marcus Freeman, job hopping and using Notre Dame as a stepping stone. I think that's the last thing that you've got to worry about if you're a Notre Dame fan when you hear a response like that. Do you buy or sell Jadarian Price as the best Notre Dame return man of your lifetime, Jesse Stiers?
I do buy this. I think the only person that would be in contention is George Atkinson. But what I would say about Jadarian Price is his returns happen in critical moments. His first return for a touchdown was against Wisconsin inside. They were playing inside the Bears stadium, right? That was Soldier Field. That was a kickoff return that solidified that game. That game was really close, coming down to the end. I think it was towards the end of the third quarter, maybe in the beginning of the fourth quarter, where he returned that kickoff. That is what blew that game open. What came after that was like a Wisconsin pick six, I think, maybe multiple Wisconsin pick sixes, if I'm not mistaken. And then his second return comes at home against USC last year, 2 years ago, to really put the nail in the coffin in that game. And then again, this USC game this year was close, and he ended up, basically closing the door on that game as well. So I think that his returns come in more meaningful or impactful moments.
Sorry, I had a little coughing attack there while you were doing that. Give me just a second. He is the only player in the nation with 2 100-yard kickoff return touchdowns this season. He's also the first Notre Dame player ever with multiple kick return touchdowns of 100-plus yards, just the fourth Notre Dame player since at least 1996, the year you were born, by the way, to return more than one kickoff for touchdowns in the same season. There have been 5 kickoff returns in Notre Dame history, 5 in Notre Dame history to go 100 yards for a touchdown, and Price has 2 of them this season. Like, think about that. He's also tied for second all-time in kick returns for touchdown in Notre Dame history with 3. Rocket Ismail is the record holder with 5. Tim Brown, Allen Rossum, C.J. Sanders, who I think gets forgotten in this conversation. C.J. Sanders, they're all tied for second place with Price. So, again, we're talking about your lifetime, which goes back to 1996. I have to say absolutely yes. Jadarian Price, the best Notre Dame kickoff return man in nearly 30 years for Notre Dame. I was fighting back chokes that whole time. Outband says Zippy was always exciting, even though he was a punt returner. Yeah. And I'm saying, did I specify kick return? Well, I said return man, but if you factored punt returns in there, maybe you could include Zibikowski. I'd put him a close second, probably behind. But again, we're talking about Jesse's lifetime. This goes back to 1996. So I'm saying Tim Brown, Rocket Ismail, whichever order you want to put those 2 guys in, and then I would put Jadarian Price as number 3 behind them. I would probably put Zibby behind Price at what would that be? Number 4. You buy or sell that?
No, I buy that. I definitely buy that. And I think Zibikowski deserves an honorable mention in this situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, especially doing it as a punt returner, because the degree of difficulty is so much different there with the gunners coming down on top of you and everything else. Remember yesterday, Jesse, when I accidentally played that music bed?
Yes.
I told you that I was going to get in trouble because it was going to get flagged by YouTube. Sure enough, it happened. I had to get it flagged. It was actually a fairly simple fix. You go in and you click this thing and it tells you, exactly where the copyright infringement came, and it asks you, do you want to basically mute that? You just hit yes, and then it takes care of it. And then once it processes it, it's back up and running again. So
there we go.
That was all it took. But we did get flagged. Told you I'd get flagged, and I got flagged.
Shame on you.
I know. Petros Papadakis, former Southern Cal football player who also works in the media as a TV analyst and on the radio in California. He has been very outspoken with his displeasure. Southern Cal potentially canceling, walking away from, however you want to phrase it, the Notre Dame-USC rivalry. Here is a clip from Papadakis from one of his latest shows this week that is also made the rounds on social media.
I know why Lincoln Riley doesn't want to go play at Notre Dame. They're soft. They're soft, and the bar is too high for him to go play that game. But if that's the truth, then you're too soft to be the USC coach. If you're too soft to lead those guys into battle out there and not be better and not be more physically prepared for a physical football team, what makes you think that you're going to go to Ohio State and win ever, or Penn State and win ever, or anywhere else? I mean, it just makes me so sick that something that is so deeply ingrained in our identity, if you're a former player at USC or Notre Dame, or even a fan, and it's such a big part of who we are as players to have played there against them, and that Lincoln Riley or even Jen Cohen, just a fart in a whirlwind in the history of USC, could even say something about the rivalry and act like they have a say in it being played or not? That's ridiculous. NBC's Nicole Arbach reported Saturday night that USC and Notre Dame are working hard to finalize an extension of the rivalry for 2026 and 2027, and they are hopeful. USC wants to act like they got something. Like, Notre Dame's right. Notre Dame says, well, what needs to change? We're going to do what we always did. In the odd years, you come out here, just like they just did in October, and on the even years, we'll go out there around the Thanksgiving. And that's, USC should have signed that deal for another 50 years. And one of the sad parts of this story is the USC messaging. It's disgusting. If you knew what the Notre Dame rivalry meant to USC people, you wouldn't say this out of your face to anybody, to get a reaction, to do anything.
You wouldn't say it out of your face as opposed to saying it somewhere else. I don't know. Petros for president, Jesse. Like, do we need the stickers? Do we need the T-shirts right now? What do you think?
Yeah, I do think we need the Petros for president, but it's like, I mean, the guy was just on a straight just facts for 2 minutes, just rolling fact after fact after fact. And I think that like the main point that he said, like, if you're not man enough to go into Notre Dame, you're not man enough to be the head coach of USC.
Yeah.
And I said this before too, and I think he kind of echoed it. If you can't beat Notre Dame, what makes you think you deserve to play these other teams and you have a chance to beat some of these other teams?
How are you going to win a Big Ten championship if you're not even, confident enough that you can play Notre Dame year in and year out? How are you going to win a Big Ten championship against the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States of the world, and obviously Oregon in there as well?
And I think the other big one that I really respect is he came at all these idiots that are talking it sideways on social media. And it's like, you don't deserve, it's a slap in the face to people like him to say, what USC should and shouldn't do in this situation. And I respect him for saying, this isn't a Notre Dame issue. This is obviously an issue led by USC. Notre Dame is doing what they need to do to make sure that this rivalry goes on. USC is the one that is putting speed bumps in the road and obstacles in the road, right? And so, again, I love the fact that he is coming at his own people and saying, shut up because you don't know what this rivalry means, actually.
Right. And it's important to remember, this is a USC alum. He was a team captain for USC. He's called out Pete Carroll in the past. He's obviously calling out Lincoln Riley right now, and he is using his platform for the good of all of us in college football. So it's like this is not just some dude who's on the radio or on TV, taking crack shots at him. I do love the fart in a whirlwind comment.
That was amazing.
They're just a fart in the whirlwind.
He is one-liner after one-liner.
I know. He was going at him, but it matters to him. And, like when you listen to him say what needs to change, these two programs have been doing this for decades now at this point, where USC comes to Notre Dame in October. Notre Dame goes to USC Thanksgiving weekend at the end of the year. What needs to change? Why should you change it when it's been going on forever just because you happen to be in a new conference, which you, by the way, now, Lincoln Riley is not the decision maker in this, but the athletic department and the university, they made the decision. Like, you knew that travel was going to come with it when it comes to playing in the Big Ten. But I think the best point that he made was, if you're Lincoln Riley, what makes you think you can compete with the Ohio States, Penn States of the world, if you're not confident enough to take on Notre Dame, your oldest rival, year in and year out? What makes you think that you can compete?
Let me ask you this. If we could go back before Lincoln Riley took the job and he was at Oklahoma, and Lincoln Riley could predict the future, right? He could see what is unfolding here at USC and the struggles that he's having. Do you think he takes this job?
No.
Given the chance again?
I think he got out. I think he left Oklahoma because he thought he had a softer landing spot where it was going to be
because he knew Oklahoma was headed to the SEC.
Right. He didn't know that USC at that point. I think it took about a year before this stuff came up with USC leaping to the Big Ten. It took about a year into his tenure. He thought he was leaving Oklahoma, who he knew was going to the SEC, where he knew it was going to be harder to compete for national championships there. So he went to USC, where he thought he was going to have kind of like Brian Kelly. He thought he was going to have an easier time recruiting Southern California, and it would be easier for him to build that up and win Pac-12 championships every year. He didn't see a future where USC was going to jump to the Big Ten within a couple of years, of him taking that job. So no, I I don't think he had any idea what was coming for him when he left for Southern Cal.
And now he's trying to make his life easier again and removing Notre Dame from the schedule.
Right. And the only landing spot for him now is if he could convince them to leave the Big Ten and go to the Big 12, like take USC to the Big 12, I think. And, again, to like what Petros is talking about with the fart in a whirlwind comment, these are two people who are carpetbaggers, Lincoln Riley and Jen Cohen. Like, within 10 years, odds are neither one of them is going to be affiliated with USC anymore. Like,
right. So why should they be given the privilege to make this high leverage situation?
Yes, exactly. Why should they be the ones who have the power to get USC out of one of the longest, most traditional rivalries in college football? Why should they be the ones who wield that kind of power when people like Petros, who went to the school, who played for the school and have literally, like sweated and bled for his school, why should they be the ones to wield that kind of power when alums like Petros Papadakis and so many others, like what this rivalry actually means to them, why should their opinions be discounted over, under people like Lincoln Riley and Jen Cohen?
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, I think if you sum this up, the Notre Dame-USC rivalry means more than USC being in the Big Ten or any other conference.
Yeah, exactly. It should mean more, but that's not what they're making it right now. They're finding excuses.
They care about money and an easier path to a playoff appearance.
Right. And again, I go back to the fact that the Big Ten, remember this summer, the Big Ten was the conference with all these jabs at the SEC and these other conferences about you got to play 9 games. You got to play a 9-game schedule.
So what did they do?
So the SEC, they've gone to a 9-game schedule. The ACC, they've gone to a 9-game schedule going forward. The Big 12 also has a 9-game schedule. And those 3 conferences have also put in the stipulation that in addition to the 9 conference games you're playing, you also, if you're in that conference, you also have to play a 10th game against a Power 4 opponent. The Big Ten is the only conference that has not included that. And if the Big Ten would do that, it would make things like it would help alleviate some of this that USC and Notre Dame is going through right now.
It would literally carve out a path for this rivalry to continue on with no issues.
Right, because everyone would.
But they want to play Villanova and Florida Atlantic and the Citadels in those first 3 games.
Yeah, Indiana State and all like look at Indiana's schedule. We've talked about that. Indiana, Kurt Signetti was like chief guy out there throwing the jabs about, oh, we're playing this, we're playing 9 games. Well, yeah, okay, you're playing 9 conference games, but you're playing FCS and lower level FBS non-conference opponents. You're not playing any Power 4 conference opponents. The Big Ten needs to include that going forward. They need to make that happen. We'll take a timeout. Do you want to rank your rivalries first?
Yes.
Let's do that. Okay.
Let's get down to business.
Let's rank the top college football rivalries. You brought this up yesterday. So, top of the list, Ohio State, Michigan. Can we stipulate?
Yeah, I want to preface, though, that my list, I don't really want to go in order. I have a top 5, and I think you can do whatever you want with that order. I'm going to be biased and say the Notre Dame and USC one is the best. So I'm just putting that out there right now.
Okay. All right. Even though, you're more emotional about it, you're closer to it. I can live with that.
Right.
Notre Dame, USC. I won't go in order either. Notre Dame, USC, Ohio State, Michigan. That has to be in the top 2.
Red River.
In the top 5. Red River. Then what?
Army,
that's
Navy.
3. So you got Army, Navy. That's 4. So some of your options, Miami, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn. What are you going to?
I'm going Alabama, Auburn.
I think I have to as well. Like if you're willing to kill trees over a rivalry, like historic trees, I think that has to be in the top 5 as well. So we've got Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, Notre Dame, USC, Army, Navy, Texas, Oklahoma. That's our top 5 college football.
What was
rivalries.
that Florida one? Not was it Florida, Georgia? Is that what you said?
Florida, Georgia. That's a big one as well.
That one came up. I was telling you I was listening to whoever this past weekend. That's the one that came up. I don't view that as an important rivalry, but I feel like 20 years ago is really significant. Like, I think it's lost its significance.
I think it's lost its significance because we're not allowed to call it the world's largest cocktail party anymore. Like, that used to be. It lost that name, and we're not allowed to call it the world's largest cocktail party anymore. We just call it Florida, Georgia now. And, even though they got a country, Florida, Georgia line and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think it has lost its luster because we're not allowed to call it that fun name anymore. I think, it plays into it, the fact that Georgia is now so good. Florida is not
so much.
Yeah, like it is shifted quite a bit. Appreciate you being here. Again, appreciate the questions that we had in the mailbag portion of the show today. Vince will be back with me tomorrow. We'll talk some Notre Dame football. We'll talk to Notre Dame women's basketball coach Niall Ivey, and we'll do some other stuff as well. Talk to you tomorrow. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.
Adios, amigos.